You left Glasgow. You did your first degree in Glasgow, then you moved to Manchester and you did an MA, and then you moved to London. Your grandparents are Polish?
My dad's side, his dad was Polish, his mum was Brazilian, and my mother's side, her mum was Scottish, but my grandpa Freddie was Austrian. Martin Whitmarsh, a name that people will know in Formula One, was the CEO team principal McLaren, but he was the chairman of FOTA as well.
Okay.
And I have to say, when I went down to the McLaren Technology Centre, and if anyone's seen the MTC on any Sky coverage, they should look it up. It's the most incredible place. It's a bit Star Trek-y. My first race in Singapore in 2011, and he took me aside before the meeting and he did this like weird handshake. And he goes, "You're the new kid in the block here. I'll show you how things are done."
Welcome to another episode of Talk with the Scot. I am here with a very old friend, also a Glaswegian, or former Glaswegian, Olly Weingarten.
Hi Paul,
How
good
you
to
doing?
be here. Yeah, great to be in Israel.
I'm sure it is. So you gave me a heads up that you were visiting here for a couple of weeks because your parents live here, you've got a brother here.
That's right, yeah.
And I think you head back tomorrow.
I do, sadly. Yeah, I had 2 weeks here. My brother, my youngest brother, had a baby, so we came out to see him.
Very nice.
My parents live here, made Aliyah just around COVID time.
Good timing.
Indeed. And it's probably in my roadmap at some point as well, but I think it was important for us to get to Israel as a family as well.
Yeah.
Last week we went down south to see, well, I went with my wife, not with the kids, down to the Gaza envelope and Nova with a tour guide who's actually a Nova survivor.
Yeah.
And for me, it was important. I'm a real Zionist, and it was just important to see and be able to pay some respect to what happened. And then, actually, I'm wearing a T-shirt, very uplifting at the end of the day. We saw the Shuva brothers, which was the most uplifting part of the day. So, feel I've had a nice blend of family and doing my Zionist bit.
Well, it's important. And I obviously I knew last week that you had gone down there because you messaged me and we spoke before you came out to Israel. You were asking about it. I think it's important to go. Just even when you go back to London, so you can spread the word and tell people what's really going on. Yeah,
and last night took the kids out, 3 young kids. We went to Hostage Square when it was a bit quieter, and thought it was important for them to see what's happening. And they've recreated a little tunnel there, and kids said this is scary, and I said that's the point. So I think certainly going home feeling we've done our bit and feeling more Jewish as well, if that makes sense.
Well, hopefully you come back here one day to live.
Indeed.
Yeah. So we've known each other a long time. Your mum's Glaswegian, your dad's Brazilian. I think if I remember correctly, your grandparents are Polish?
No, my dad's side, his dad was Polish, his mum was Brazilian, and my mother's side, her mum was Scottish, but my grandpa Freddie was Austrian.
Right.
Real motley crew.
So you took your football skills from your mum,
sadly,
your drinking skills from your dad, but you took some of your business skills out of your grandfather because he was a successful man.
Yeah, he was a successful entrepreneur. He left Austria as an immigrant during the war, young kid.
Yeah.
And, cut long story short, set up a textile business which became a PLC and sold to Marks and Spencer's up in Glasgow in an area called Castle Milk, which you'll know only too well.
Yep.
And I think he always instilled in us the value of money. He drove a Rolls Royce and he wasn't flash about it. He had a presence about him which people respected. And, the value of money was something that was very important from day one.
It wasn't just the value of money. It was also the value of hard work and the benefits of working hard and really, really simply rolling your sleeves up and getting on with it.
Yeah, he came from nothing. And I think that's, when I say the value of money, as much as he might be able to throw money at his family, he wanted them to earn it.
Yeah.
And I think probably other characteristics he wanted to see, he was really into his Jewish faith.
Okay.
And, he wanted us to respect that, certainly in his house. And Friday night was a real tradition.
Yeah.
That he wanted us to treat people in the way that we would want to be treated, which sounds quite simple, but the people that you come across in business that don't have the right etiquette is still astounding.
Well, we'll probably touch on that as we work our way through your career when you're mingling with the likes of Bernie Ecclestone.
Ecclestone.
Oh,
Not Ecclestone. He's definitely not an Ecclestone.
Ecclestone in Formula One. But you left Glasgow. you did your first degree in Glasgow, then you moved to Manchester and you did an MA, and then you moved to London. And in London, you studied to be a solicitor. In London, you got your first job as a trainee solicitor. But then quickly you realised it wasn't quite for you, and an opportunity presented itself.
Yeah, I don't think I wanted to be a private practice lawyer.
Yeah.
I didn't like the politics, the timesheets, the infrastructure, the hierarchy. I just didn't like it. There wasn't enough autonomy for someone like me who wanted to be a bit more entrepreneurial.
Okay.
Yeah, you could go out and rainmake, but you wouldn't see the benefit of that as a new lawyer. And the only seat, so to speak, that I was interested in to qualify into was technology media, where I could do some sports work. And my interview came as I was in the last part of my training contract with them, but if it makes sense, I was only 2 months into the department I wanted to qualify into. So I was going up against people that had 6 months experience going into interviews with partners.
Right.
I had 6 months with Paul, but 2 months with Ollie.
Yeah.
So realistically, you're not going to get offered
You're going
a
to
job.
struggle.
Yeah. And I decided I was going to leave. They offered me a corporate job, actually, because they wanted to keep me, because they obviously saw something in me which was a bit more entrepreneurial. But I saw in the Lost Society Gazette an advert for a legal service executive at the Premier League. I was like, oh, this looks interesting. And
that's the English Premier League.
There's the English Premier League, yes. The Premier League, the original Premier League. I applied for it and I got it. I think for your listeners, what's probably more interesting is how did I get it? I didn't get it just in the back of an interview and having qualified at a decent law firm. I think I got it because if you looked at my CV, it showed an interest in sport and media. I had regular work experience in Glasgow at Levy & McRae, a law firm that was known for sports work. In fact, I remember listening to the Andy Gorham tapes, the consecutive days when he, the undercover reporter did him. They were doing Daily Record proofreading. Yeah, it was all really relevant, interesting work. I also thought that I wanted to be a football agent. I wanted to go down the same career that a guy called Jock Brown, who was a commentator, who was a lawyer as well, and he was a football agent. So I was slowly but steadily trying to get enough on my CV. I was at university, I did a football radio show and interviewed Trevor Stevens. So I had a really good mix, in my opinion, that when it came to the interview, and I sat in front of Simon Johnson, who left after 3 months and went with Brian Barwick to the FA to run the World Cup bid, he could see, actually, I think, that I had something else to offer, and I was interested in it genuinely. So I decided to park being a football agent and go to the Premier League. And the role was legal service executive, so it was a real entry-level legal role. But Simon left after 3 months, and for me, it was sink or swim. All of a sudden, I was reporting to the chief exec, a name you might know, Richard Scudamore.
Yeah, of course.
And my workload grew exponentially. But also, I seemed to have this autonomy to be able to really be allowed to focus on what I thought was important, with some reporting to Richard, which was like, right, Richard, I think we should sue YouTube because the value of our broadcast rights is going to be diminished because of this piracy. I'm being quite succinct.
Yeah.
And he would say, do a board paper. So I'd present it to the board and they would sign off. So I took them down routes that they probably never imagined, but there was some oversight. It wasn't just my autonomous decision making that led to us suing YouTube in the US in a class action.
Yeah.
The board signed it off. But I was in charge of sponsorship. I was involved in some of the broadcast work, the anti-piracy. I was in charge of all the lobbying from a legal perspective to give better protection to the broadcast rights. So I set up the Sports Rights Owners Coalition with international sports governing bodies. We worked on mutual issues like betting, right, fair return, and ticket touting, and better copyright protection on anti-piracy. It was a fascinating 7 years.
Yeah.
And I'll pause there because you might have questions on it, but it was, for me, sink or swim. I could have drowned. I was still young. I went to university a month before my 17th birthday. The Scottish system's quite weird.
So you were young.
So I was young. And it was really character building.
But you probably found it's not just about your interest in sports or your limited experience. It was probably your passion that came through in those early days, or even during the interview process. They could see that you would go the extra mile because you were passionate about it. It wasn't going to be just a job for you.
I suspect that's right. I mean, I remember bouncing in at the beginning to my job.
Yeah.
But it's a dream job, isn't it? You're a lawyer, you're at the Premier League at my age. It's like, it's incredible. Well, it's pinch yourself stuff.
Yeah. Well, this is when the Premier League was obviously, I think the Premier League was founded in 92.
It was very small then.
So it was small. So you probably, as a young guy going in there, they probably needed, it was maybe like being run in a sort of startup mode, just everybody hands on deck, everybody doing everything. Do you think you would have achieved as much as you did if you were at the Premier League now? Because it's obviously, over the years, it's turned into a monster.
Yeah.
There is so much money involved in English football, English Premier League. You may, if people going in now, there may be just a very corporate environment, probably just very structured. You've got your little box that you sit in and you do your remit.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That probably wasn't the case when you joined.
I think you're right. I haven't really thought about it like that, but the lawyer that I hired to assist me, and he did a lot of the commercial, contractual work, 'cause I never enjoyed just doing contracts day in, day out. He's grown an empire there.
Yeah.
An empire. And it is a lot more corporate. It is, I used the word exponentially before. It has grown exponentially, not just financially, but they're in Paddington in these huge headquarters, and they have so many different departments, because if you think about all the fan engagement work and all the academy and all the charitable initiatives, there's so many different departments. It's huge. So it's a beast.
When you were there, did you think it would reach the stage of where it's reached? Because we're talking about an organisation that has gone from launched in early 90s and it's now worth billions. You mean the TV money?
The TV money
is
is
about
huge.
5-6 billion a year, I think.
The TV money and the sponsorship grew every 3 years that I was there. I can't take credit for it, other than my role was, part of my role is to protect the broadcast rights. So if you show the licensees you're protecting the broadcast rights, they've got some faith in the integrity, they will spend more money on them.
Yeah.
But the money just kept going up ridiculously. I mean, even just doing the Barclays title sponsorship deal every 3 years, there was good, healthy increase in new partners came in. But it was the broadcast rights. The Sky contract was, everyone knows what that was worth.
Yeah.
But the amount I would never have envisaged from when I was there. And we sort of gradually grew. We're Connaught Place, then we were off in Gloucester Place, off Baker Street. When all of a sudden we've got another floor in a building, but the Football League's in there as well.
Yeah.
You've got the Football Foundation merged, you've got the Football Data Co. There's sort of little bits you can see that have been pulled together. But I never thought it'd be the behemoth it's become.
Back then when you were still there, because I think you were there for 7 years.
I was, yes.
If in your last year, if somebody sat you down and said, listen, over the next 5 years or 10 years, this is the roadmap, this is what it's going to become, would you have stayed?
No, I don't think I would have stayed. And the reason is, so I was there in 2004, 2011, fascinating years for the league. But for me, it was becoming Groundhog Day.
Right.
And I'd hit a glass ceiling. And I'd had the conversation internally. It's like, where am I going to go? Now, maybe a year later, the guy I hired has started to create an empire, and Kevin's done brilliantly. But at that point of time, that wasn't the direction Richard wanted to go. The Scudamore. I was working with Richard Masters as well, who's now the CEO. But there's a thing called the 7-year itch. It was my first real job. I didn't know about it. But hit a glass ceiling. I think it's time. I need something different.
The other thing I'm interested in, because obviously, me and you speak fairly frequently. I mean, we often talk about football. So you're in the Premier League. You're probably going off watching matches. You're in the, executive suite. You're mingling with people that you've probably only read about on newspapers or, having interactions. Even the likes of Richard Scudamore, like the godfather of the Premier League to some extent. How did you deal with that? Like, were you, there's some people may just crumble in that environment. But I'm guessing knowing you, and it might, it might come back to having that little bit of, they call it the Glasgow Gallus.
The Gallus or the chutzpah.
Yeah, you just, you walk in and you chest out and you get on with it.
Yeah.
Was that your approach?
So, never really thought about it, to be honest. Give a couple of anecdotes. Richard Scudamore had this unbelievable character trait about him where he knew your topic better than you. He was one of the few people I got nervous going into a meeting with. I worked with him for 7 years. He phoned me, I'd be nervous. It's just the adrenaline. There was something about it. But you've got to perform to your best. You know your topic. Is he trying to catch? Probably not trying to catch you out. He's just trying to make sure that we all do the best job we can do.
Yeah.
And then, in respect of going into boardrooms and in whatever, hospitality suites, it wasn't really an issue. I think most nervous I probably got was when I was doing my emails to all the club owners. And I remember Richard once saying to me, you've done this so well, but read this back. And that's what he was like. But no, I just got on with it.
Fair enough. So you decided, you hit that glass ceiling. You decided, like, what else is out there? If I remember correctly, it wasn't that you went searching. they found you.
Yeah, it's very odd. I got headhunted, and to this day, I still do not know who recommended me
really?
to the headhunter. And it was a very niche headhunter that worked in motorsport. And I asked the person who I thought it was someone that worked with Bernie, and I'll probably talk about her in a bit. I said, "Did you recommend me to this headhunter?" They went, "No." I said, "You sure?" She said, "I won't lie to you."
So to this day, you don't know who
Still
it was?
to this day, don't know who it was.
If you're listening, let us know.
Yeah, it'd be good. I got headhunted for the role of Secretary General of the Formula One Teams Association. It was known as FOTA. So most F1 purists would know what FOTA was. It was an association that Ferrari and others came together to form to take on Bernie as a commercial rights holder and the governing body, the FIA, and really coalesce and represent themselves together. And there was breakaways that were threatened, but ultimately, for me, I'll backtrack a little bit. So the role of Secretary General was move to Switzerland, try and herd cattle, a bit like what I'd done with the Sports Rights Owners Coalition at the Premier League. So actually, I had some stakeholder management experience already, let alone with the Premier League clubs. And get under the bonnet of the sport, look at, can we get better revenues for the sport? Can we get more money from Bernie? Can we get better sport regulations, technical regulations? Can we promote the sport better? Martin Whitmarsh, a name that people will know in Formula One, was the CEO team principal McLaren, but he was the chairman of FOTA as well.
Okay.
And I have to say, when I went down to the McLaren Technology Centre, and if anyone's seen the MTC on any Sky coverage, they should look it up. It's the most incredible place. It's a bit Star Trek-y. I was laid on the VIP experience, the entrance and everything. Went up to Martin's office and I was not sold in this role. And 2 hours later, I came out to about 20 missed calls from my wife, Claire, like, "Where are you?" I said, "I've just had an interview." She said, "But you're like 2 hours late." I said, "Yeah, he spoke at me. I think he only asked me 2 questions."
Really?
She said, "What do you think?" I said, "I'm quite interested in it." He sold me on it. I then went to see the vice chairman the next day. I mean, in fact, this is how indiscreet Martin was. He phones up Eric Boulier, another name that people might know of. He was the Lotus team principal time. He goes, "Eric, I think I found our man."
So it wasn't an interview. You were basically getting told you were getting
I was
the job.
being grilled, and I was being sense checked, and they were seeing how sensible I was, and what was my understanding of F1. And actually, I liked F1. You probably grew up watching Senna and Prost and Mansell and Coulthard.
Absolutely.
As did I.
Yeah.
But I'd never looked at the technical regulations. I'd given 1 minute of thought to the sporting regs, and all of a sudden, I'm going to be entrusted in trying to pull teams together to agree changes to them. And it was fascinating. And it involved me moving to Geneva at the time that my wife was pregnant, which didn't go down too well.
Was the plan that she was going to move over?
Yes, once she had the baby and things were settled, she was going to move over. We had a flat, it was all set up. We get into some of the politics of F1, but essentially my job was to do a commercial and financial analysis of the sport ahead of the Concord Agreement, which is the tripartite agreement that binds the teams, the FIA and Bernie, the commercial rights holder, together.
Yeah.
And Bernie picked off Ferrari and Red Bull with big checks, so the rest of them fell like dominoes. And Ferrari and Red Bull couldn't be in FOTA. It was a condition that Bernie put on them. So it was like, there's no point in being in Switzerland. May as well do it in London. So I just had an office in Malmö, yeah, so I moved back. So I didn't spend a huge amount of time in Geneva anyway.
Let's talk about, he's built a career in the world of sports. If you're going football to Formula One, was there any learnings, anything that you took from your 7 years at the Premier League into this new position within Formula One racing? And then we'll get on to Bernie and everything that's going on.
I haven't given it a huge amount of thought, but the most obvious thing must be stakeholder management, because the Premier League, as I said here, was doing SROC, which was like the International Sports Rights Owners Coalition, lots and lots of governing bodies.
Yeah.
You want them to sign a piece of paper that says this is our position on whatever issue. And the reason at the Premier League we set up SROC was because we couldn't always be the Premier League going through the door of the European Commission or whoever it was. So I had to juggle lots of views to get them to acquiesce on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Not too different to what I was doing in Formula One, to be honest. Having to speak to people pragmatically.
Yeah.
Having to try and negotiate positions, try and find the right balance, compromise, all skills that I'd probably utilised at the Premier League. But I think, why did they want someone from the Premier League? Probably because there's only a couple of pinnacles of sport, really, aren't there? One that are blue chip sports properties on a global basis. One's the Premier League, one's Formula One.
Yeah.
Formula One was way behind the Premier League at the time because Bernie was stagnating it on a variety of runs. Not so much money, although you could argue the pot could have been bigger, on social media, and it had been free to air for such a long time, and all of a sudden it was going to Sky on pay TV. So there are lots of learnings that probably subconsciously I had when I was sitting in meetings, whether it was a legal working group, whether it's promotional activities working group, whatever it was, probably had a lot of learnings that I could just implement, and probably didn't think about it in my head. Oh, I learned this at the Premier League. Just did it naturally.
You just did it.
Yeah.
And you were older, so you probably had more confidence about you as well.
I mean, yes, but it's a very daunting environment sitting around a table with people that you just see on TV that own Formula One teams. Christian Horner once said to me, I feel sorry for the job that you've got, Ollie. And I said, well, you're the one that makes it so fucking difficult, excuse my language. And that was the reality.
Yeah.
You know, we try to be inclusive, but one of my team principals was once with Bernie, and another team principal ran up and went, Bernie, look what FOTA's doing.
So there's lots of games. So
yeah.
Politics.
A lot of self-ego and interest was probably worse in Formula One. In fact, I met the chief executive of the British Horse Racing Authority shortly after, and he said horse racing is very political, but I think Formula One is probably the most political sport there is.
And was that because it helped Bernie to have it like that, or it was just, or something else?
I think a bit of both. I never could have estimated how much leverage Bernie had over the teams. Two things for me. One was he controlled the money. I call it the purse, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, all of a sudden he's meant to make the payment at the end of the month. A lot of these teams are robbing Peter to pay Paul at the time. If Bernie suddenly has a glitch with the banking, the bailiffs can be at Lotus in the paddock. It was documented.
And it all just falls down.
It all falls down.
Yeah.
And Bob Fernley at Force India once went against the owners of CVC and said they were raping the sport. So Bob walks up to the Monaco paddock with his pass, access denied. Bernie controlled access to the paddock. You can't get in the paddock. You can't work. You can't bring your guests in. You know, he was in charge of passes. So just that, you know, it doesn't sound massive.
Yeah.
But
it's just these little.
You know, and I'll tell you another story after about the leverage Bernie had over me on an activity I wanted to do. So Bernie, did he like the politics? It suited him to divide and conquer.
But there's also a case to say somebody like a sport like Formula One needs somebody like Bernie, because he really did transform that sport and industry, and he turned it into world-renowned, popular. I mean, when you were there was maybe 20 races a year.
Yeah, I think maybe the most I had was 21 in my time.
Right, but I think under Bernie's ownership, he took it over to the US. He took it to, I think, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, Russia. Yeah.
Russia.
No, he got Azerbaijan. No. Listen, I can't knock Bernie for the job that he did in growing the sport. The job that Bernie did is second to none. What Bernie can be knocked for is not opening up his eyes to additional ways to grow the sport and grow the pot. And that's what Liberty did as soon as they came in.
How did his approach limit your ability to do your job?
He saw us as a union. He could never differentiate me from a guy that might have a bit of intelligence that come from the Premier League with some learnings that could be transcended across to Formula One. He saw us as a union. He talked to Martin and goes, Martin, I'm talking to you as McLaren, not head of the union. And that was my first challenge. My first ever meeting with Bernie, I was in my first race in Singapore in 2011, and he took me aside before the meeting and he did this like weird handshake like that, and he goes, you're the new kid in the block here. I'll show you how things aren't done here. That was shots fired.
Okay.
That was shots fired. I mean, I've got stories of I didn't have huge amount of dealings with Bernie because I wrote quite a lot of letters, but he would never phone me on an issue unless he needed to find something out, and then he'd go behind my back or not even behind my back, go in front of my face and kill it. Like I had
like what?
You mentioned America.
Yeah.
Formula One done a terrible job in America. If you remember Indianapolis and cars not running and the tyres issue,
yeah.
etc. So Austin's coming back on the calendar, first race in America for a number of years, and part of my job with the teams was let's help really promote Austin and get some noise, and it'll help us all commercially. And I said, well, we could do a fans forum, which was one of these free to watch events that I streamed with drivers away from the track, so Bernie couldn't kill it. But after Montreal, why don't we go down to New York? Because I've been speaking to Austin Circuit. They're great guys. They're willing to put some money into this, but the press won't come to Austin. The press is in New York. So if we go from Montreal,
yeah,
we go straight to New York. I said, well, let's see if we could hire out Times Square. To cut a long story short, Times Square's booked. We're doing a huge fans forum, Pirelli pit stops. All the teams are getting their partners to buy into it. I vividly remember this. I'm walking along the embankment in London to go to see the guy from F1 in Schools charity. And Martin Whitmarsh phones me and goes, Oliver, will you phone Bernie? My heart sank. He wants to hear about the New York activation, but tell him Ferrari are involved, and it's all great, and everyone's involved, so make it positive. Phone Bernie's office, I tell him about it. He listens, doesn't really say much. Find out, next day or 2 days later, he wants to kill it.
He killed it.
Now, I'd asked Martin and the teams at the time of organising this, which point do we tell Bernie we're doing? And the answer was the point of no return. He still managed to kill at the point of no return. Austin Circuit probably felt that Bernie asked him to kill it, that, do me a favour, scratch your back, scratch my back. You're probably going to ask me, why did he kill it? And to this day, none of us know, except we think he was maybe trying to play the New Jersey card. But we'd been speaking to New Jersey and told them to get involved, and they never ended up doing anything anyway, so...
I actually wasn't going to ask you why he killed it. I was going to ask you how you dealt with it, because
I was shattered. I was gutted.
Right, because you'd obviously put in, weeks, months of work, and at the very last second, it's pulled out from underneath your.
I'm still gutted. I thought it was a brilliant idea. It's happened since I've left, but I was. It'd been unique, first of its kind. I was really upset, and then I'm getting teams phoning me saying, we spent money, our partners are involved. And I'm like, speak to your team principal. I can't say anything else. I'm sorry. It's politics. It's Bernie. You need to talk to your team principal. No, I was really, really quite devastated by it.
Look at that point, because I'll tell you, in a professional sense, if I fail or I get a no or anything negative, that fires me up big time. And I'm like, well, that's your mistake. I'm going to show you. And I've got so many examples of throughout my professional life of things like that. So you're saying you're gutted, but are you gutted and shattered and you think, that's it, there's no point, I'm giving up? Or are you thinking, I'm going to show him what a mistake and try something else?
We did a fans forum in New York. So the only thing I could salvage was taking some drivers private plane after the Montreal race, Checo Perez and Paul di Resta, a few others. It wasn't huge. We filled up a theatre in New York. We did a fans forum. We live streamed it. That was all I could salvage. I was gutted. I was never going to be able to do anything like we envisaged. So all I could do was salvage what remained. And I say it still pains me because it was a brilliant idea.
It was a great idea. It really was. But here. I know I did an episode of the podcast with Near.
Yes,
and I know you know Near.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. He's a big Formula One.
He's
fan.
a petrol head.
Oh,
he's a petrol head.
He loves it. Now, to anybody that loves Formula One, or maybe any sports fan, they're probably just thinking, wow, what a life. Must be great. And probably even more so in a sport like Formula One, because maybe now, I don't know, there's 25, 26
24
races.
races, yeah.
So it's spread over maybe 9 months of the year. I mean, these guys are literally week to week, or every couple of weeks, they're going to a different country, racing, and then packing it up, and then they're going elsewhere. So from the outside, it's like, what a life. What a life. Now, you had to live that life for a number of years. Let's talk about the sacrifices, because there are, and those are the things that people don't see. The fact that you're married, little kids, and, you're not getting any younger. So it's all that travel, sleeping in hotels, and it sounds amazing from the outside, but it's probably not.
3 years, 20 odd races, and you organise events in Times Square. You've got all these other flights that you're doing, and you're off to Switzerland to see the FIA, and so almost every weekend you're away. I think the hardest part was my wife being on her own so much, and Saturday nights, couples are all going out together. No one's thinking about having the third wheel.
Yeah.
Kids were young, probably a good age to do it in some respects. They have a view in the first 6 months,
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not missing a huge amount, are you? Your second and third kid in the first 6 months, because it's a bit repetitive, isn't it? Let's be honest. But as the kids grow up, you start to miss the first thing they do, isn't it? Whether it's the first word, it's the first walk, whatever it is. And you miss birthdays, or you miss the wife's birthday, or whatever it is, you miss your anniversary. And that all takes its toll.
Yeah.
Flying business class around the world sounds great. You're in the paddock. I can tell you I'm having cups of tea with Nicole Scherzinger and coming back, and my wife's like, why have you got a tea bag with no, in fact I think it wasn't a tea bag, it was like, why have you got mint and peppermint tea bags in the same cup? And I was like, oh, Nicole told me it's good for your skin. I'm like, Nicole who? Nicole Scherzinger. Who's his girlfriend? Sounds great, doesn't it? But the travelling takes its toll, and it's a job to do. For me, it would be a great one if I was single.
Yeah.
Because you can go out to Australia, you don't need to rush back. You're not getting a call in Australia saying, Mila's got a cold. I'm like, what do you want me to do? I'll tell you what, I'll jump on the first plane back, Claire. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
I'm stuck at the other side of the world. They kept things from me. There were hospital visits and...
Claire, your wife, kept things?
Claire kept things from me when she knew I was having stressful weekends, or I could, if a kid was sick in hospital or something happened. She did keep a few things from me at times. I do remember that. So there's a few challenges wrapped around it. But I was going to say to you, like, flying business class is great. Hanging out with celebrities, if that's your thing, sounds great. But for me, it was work.
Yeah.
It was a 3-year role that I did, which was full of stress, like you cannot imagine. At the end of the day, I was fortunate, got paid relatively well, but the stress and some of this people that made my life difficult, I probably wouldn't talk to again.
Yeah, because and the reason why I ask about sort of the sacrifices and challenges is because before we sat down here, like earlier on, I messaged a few people. Yeah, I'm coming into Tel Aviv, sitting down with Olly Weingarten, and they don't know you, but they're big Formula One fans. Now, ask him this, tell him this, ask him this. And that's what I'm saying. As soon as people hear about, he was involved in Formula One, or it might be football, straight away they just see the big flashing lights and they think it must be amazing. And people don't consider the other side of it, the bits that nobody else sees.
Look, don't get me wrong, it wasn't all doom and gloom.
No, of
I had
course
some
not.
good nights out.
I'm sure you did.
On a Sunday when I could let my hair down and I wasn't flying. Often the way I did it was, for European races, I'd go on a Thursday and I'd leave Sunday after the race.
Yeah.
But for flyaways, which are the ones outside of Europe, you probably had to leave on a Wednesday, and you wouldn't go out on a Sunday after the race, you'd be on a Monday. So Sunday night you had a party, like an amber lounge. And I had some very drunken nights.
Yeah.
And I remember in Abu Dhabi, I don't know if I've told this story to anyone. I remember in Abu Dhabi, the hotel receptionist coming into my room saying, "Sir, you've missed your wake-up call." And looking at my watch, and I think I had like 2 hours to the flight, something ridiculous, really, really tight. I had to throw everything in a case, ran out, and there were no taxis. And I got on the plane, I still had my sunglasses on, I was still probably under the influence. And Patrick Vieira was behind me, goes, "Bonjour, monsieur," because I'd seen him the day before.
That's funny.
I know. And he was somewhere as a judge and I wasn't.
That just sounds like a typical Saturday night in Glasgow now.
Well, indeed. So it wasn't all doom and gloom. I had some good nights out, but the travel takes its toll. The jet lag when you come home as well from places like Japan and Australia takes time to recover. And often before you know it, you're going back out. A few days later, I did it. You asked earlier on about sacrifices.
Yeah.
When my second child was born, Jonah, I went out after 2 weeks. He was 2 weeks old. I went to Austin again for a race, and I was meant to come back after the race. I was meant to fly back Monday because you can't get out on a Sunday. Yeah. So I think probably I would have got back Monday night or Tuesday morning, whenever it was. And on the Wednesday, I was going to Brazil, because the whole idea is that in Formula One, everything starts on a Thursday. So Thursdays, like, you have meetings, it's a media day for the drivers, etc. So you like to be around on a Thursday. Yeah. So I phoned Claire. I'd had a terrible weekend in Austin. This was when Bernie's right-hand guy was threatening. In fact, he told Martin that he wasn't going to let me come back to any races because I'd been spreading rumours, all of which was rubbish. But Martin believed at the start, and it created
a lot of tension.
Yeah. So I phoned Claire. I said, "How are you? How's the baby?" I said, "Well, the baby's sleeping, but the older one, and she's 2, she's not." I said, "Sorry, we'll get you some help." How's your weekend? Terrible. I said, I'm going to stay out here because I come back for a day. As much as I want to see, there's no point. I'm going to Brazil the next day. I said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to go to Miami because it's not far from Austin and I can get a direct flight to Sao Paulo." She said, "Oh, okay." She said, "Where are you staying?" I said, "It's so busy. I managed to get the last room in some hotel in South Beach called the Delano. I don't know anything about it." She went, "You bastard." Yeah. My child was 2 weeks old, but I would have come home and I would have been a wreck. Yeah. I wouldn't have been any use at all.
So you were there for 3 years. Did it just, I know the organisation sort of folded.
I had to dissolve it, yeah.
Yeah. And it probably wasn't through choice.
No.
Okay. So talk us through that. Like, at what point do you realise this is not happening? It's not working out.
Well, I mean, I could say after 2 months when Bernie picked off the 2 or 3 months of Bernie picks off a couple of teams and they leave FOTA, the writing's on the wall.
Okay.
So I'm amazed I managed to last it as long as I did. I think that's because I tried to show there could be some good with everyone working together.
Yeah.
But I don't know if history shows whether it was early 2014. I can't remember roughly, maybe March or a little bit after. It was actually the first race in Australia I didn't go to in that season because there was no money there and FOTA was coming to the end. As I mentioned earlier, Bernie had so much leverage over the team, so much so that people like Claire Williams had a lot of respect for her. She's like, I can't do this because I need Bernie. And it's probably because he was propping them up with cash.
Yeah.
Because cash flow was everything.
Yeah.
So you couldn't go against Bernie because he could just make life so much more difficult for you. So FOTA had lost its teeth. And I was relying on teams paying membership money. And when they're struggling to pay me, let alone their bills, it's
not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. So the writing was on the wall.
So then you're folding it up. At what point are you starting to think, maybe it's time I try something on my own?
If I'm honest, I would like to have stayed in Formula One. And to this day, I still feel that bit of schadenfreude that I had more to give. But I don't think any team could have hired me there and then. I don't think it would have...
You think Bernie would have put a stop on it?
Yeah. Now that might sound me being...
a troublemaker?
No, egotistic.
Ah.
But because he thinks I'm a troublemaker. But I genuinely, just knowing the landscape, think if a team said we're hiring Ollie, Bernie would have said to them in some way, roundabout way, not to.
Right.
So I had to take a bit of time out, and what I did was I carried on with the fans forum concepts, did a couple of them under my own auspices.
Okay.
And I got involved in Formula E. So sort of just fell into it my own. I sort of announced that I was doing my own agency.
Okay.
Just to get a bit of noise, the guy that's just come out of FOTA, he's 10 years Premier League for months doing his own agency. I didn't ever want to be a consultant, called it OW Advisory. And that's what it was. I did a bit of fan engagement work. I represented a guy called Marathon Man who ran more than a marathon a day over the course of a year. And then I got him a deal with Skins and he went to run across the US from each coast and got accused of cheating. I was like,
I remember
very
that.
Interesting. Did a bit of work, with the SPFL still, see if I could help them on some sponsorships. I did bits and pieces.
Yeah.
But I got involved in Formula E, so it kept me in motorsport. And then in the second season, I started a sports tech journey. A British guy was taking up the CEO role of a sports tech company. It was like VR, CGI, data, and didn't know anything about broadcast rights. My best friend introduced me to him, funny enough, because he's an old client.
Right.
And ended up doing 3 years with them. And we used the SPFL and Formula E as guinea pigs and recreated experiences. And I was doing broadcast rights work. I was doing commercial work. I was doing deals with tech suppliers and VR headset providers and off at CES, and it was really opening up this whole new world to me. So, and that's actually how I got into esports after that, because I did an activation with Virtual Live at Red Bull's. I think it was like a museum in Switzerland, and we did a esports activation. I was like, ooh, gaming is something I've done at university. I haven't really done much gaming, but this VR stuff we've been doing has got an element of gaming, because it's allowing you to go in the car during a race. It's allowing you to race in real time. So there's a professional competitive gaming element to it, which is esports.
Yeah.
So I decided, I saw the writing on the wall with Virtual Live, and I decided to part ways with them. My gut was right for reasons I won't go into in this podcast.
Okay.
And I went to an esports event with a guy that I'd been introduced to. We went to Wembley Arena one afternoon to watch the CSGO finals, Counter-Strike. Never played it. Never watched a Twitch stream. But I don't think I'd even been on Twitch at this point in my life. I certainly was on it a lot after that.
I'm sure you were.
And I was mesmerised by what an esports event was. I don't know if any of your listeners have been to an esports event or watched one, but it's really unique in respect of, you go to a sports event, it's, you know what you're going to get at a sports event, yeah? Very partisan, isn't it? And everyone's out there in the concourses drinking at half time. And
depends what sport, but yeah.
But it's, you know what you're going to get at a sports event. I went into this esports event with no expectation, and I was sat there staring at the screens, looking around, going, this is bite-sized content. The production's incredible. I know what's going on as a fan. They're not sitting in the concourses drinking. They're all buying merch, and it's cosplay, and it's families here, and this demographics interesting, and lots of elements that just open my eyes up to esports. And I thought, I'm going to have a little look at esports. And the guy called Adam White, who's now a hippie somewhere in Europe, he took a different journey to where I've gone.
Because me and you have talked a number of times over the years about esports. You're a big fan.
No, I'm a big fan. I'm an advocate.
Okay.
I mean, I don't sit in my spare time watching esports.
Fine. Okay, I'll accept that. Whereas
My son does.
I just can't get my head into it.
Yeah.
I honestly don't see the attraction of going to a stadium and sitting watching two people playing a game on a big screen. And I know what you're going to say.
What am I going to say? You go to a football match and you watch guys, grown men, kick a ball around.
Yeah.
Well,
I know. But
it's the same. It's exactly the same.
Maybe I'm just too old.
You said it.
Oh, maybe no,
Yeah.
but I'm serious. Maybe
Right.
it really is a generational thing.
It's a question that I got asked a lot. I was the traditional sports guy. I went into esports. So I did a lot of traditional sports conferences and got asked about learnings. But I always got asked, is like, I don't understand how people can sit and Twitch and watch people play. I said, well, actually, if you go on a Twitch stream, look at the chat and how engaging it is, and how engaging the streamer is. That's why, these guys are making so much money. And it's just a new form of media. And we talk about how media has converged over the years, and we've gone from the linear broadcast into streaming, and or pay-per-view and streaming, etc. It's just an evolution of gaming.
I accept that, but I think my problem is that when you look at, and we're coming away from you and your career for just a second, and I'm probably just sounding like an old man, but I think it's when you look at multiple areas within society, it's changing from you have to go out to socialise to you can sit in your own house and do everything, and you don't need to have that social interaction. Well, right on to a basic level of, want to order my food. So you just order takeaway. Delivery guy comes. So you don't even need to go out to get your food. And I think that's my problem more. Where sports was always about society coming together, social interaction. And esports, to some extent, removes that.
I can obviously counter a lot of that, and we don't need to get into a debate on gaming and esports.
We don't.
But what I would say is, firstly, when I set up London United, we'll come to a bit more detail.
Yeah.
I didn't advocate kids sitting on their ass 23 hours a day. So if you want to be a professional esports player, you got to treat yourself like a professional sports player.
Yeah.
Nutrition, for example, is hugely important, and we did some learnings on that. Exercise, physical exercise, but the social interaction is. Maybe you underestimate the amount of social interaction that happens in esports. I did a campaign with the Mayor of London when I was at London United, and it was all about showing that the skills in esports were transferable. So social media, video editing, public speaking, and a couple of others that I can't remember off the top of my head, were all skills that you used in esports, but actually, if you weren't working in esports,
they're transferable.
They're completely transferable. And the Mayor of London supported that and understood that esports gave them an opportunity to harness another demographic. And we brought in academics, we brought in industry experts, and what we did with the students, because they were all from colleges, was we said, right, here's a Twitch streamer, go and work with them and create a campaign.
Yeah.
And the social interaction was massive. So, look, you have got the stigma of someone sat in the bedroom as a gamer playing non-stop, but there is a lot of evidence and research from the trade bodies like Yuki which shows you that gaming and esports can be forced for good. You just got to be less narrow-minded.
I think you and the British Prime Minister are the only two that I've heard using the London Mayor as a positive.
Well, look, I didn't work with them out of choice.
Yeah. A number of years ago, I did it was a previous job, I did a bit of work with James Haskell and somebody Franks.
The rugby player.
Yes.
Yeah.
The All Black rugby player, 2-time World Cup. And the thing that they kept always stressing is that in the world of sports, things move so quickly that if you're not on it, you're in trouble. Is that the same in esports? Just in terms of how things move, events and organisation and making deals and...
Well, esports, you don't have esports without a publisher. So when I talk about publisher, I mean Riot Games for League of Legends and Valorant, or EA for what's now FC, the old FIFA game.
Yeah.
Some of them use it as a real promotional tool to sell the game. Some of them use it as an ecosystem to not just sell the game, but to create competition and really give something back.
Yeah.
The landscape is different to traditional sport. Like traditional sport, you sell your media rights generally. In esports, they're giving it away.
Okay.
Because they want the eyeballs. Like
Yeah.
Twitch have hardly probably paid a dime for esports rights over
Okay.
the years. But it didn't stop during COVID. The NBA, NFL, the Premier League, Formula One, all doing esports activations and using Twitch as a broadcast platform.
Right.
So does it move fast? Yes, but I think, when you say does it move fast, instantly I'm thinking about integrity and cheating and people trying to find ways to cheat and navigate the system. The broadcast landscape hasn't changed particularly fast yet. I think it will evolve. I think people will get used to paying for stuff more and more.
That's something that, Bernie did very well at Formula One. And you can say that Barry
Hearn, Eddie
have done very well with like snooker and darts. Like they've really transformed those sports. But you just touched on the integrity of people. And I know going back to London United, it ended badly. People tried to pull a fast one on you, and in the end you walked away. You had to walk away.
Well, I had a fraudulent investment, and then I had a mothball, make sure everyone got paid. And, even Guild Esports went bust this week, and people haven't been paid. So I did, from an integrity perspective, the reason I can still walk with my head held high is because I did everything right.
Yeah.
I had a mothball, and then someone acquired us, and they ran it into the ground, didn't put any money into it. So they let it dissolve. They just let it go. They offered it back to me with debt. Long story short, it is no longer.
But even with that challenging period in your professional life, because I know it was challenging, because me and you would talk round about that time, you decided to rinse and repeat to some extent, go again.
I did. I had a year off.
Yeah, but so why? What's the attraction?
Well, I went and worked in boxing, so I got back in the hamster wheel. So that was good for what I wanted to do, in hindsight. But you're working for a young entrepreneur who you don't agree with a lot of the time, and you don't have the direction that you want to maybe able to take in the business, and you see mistakes being made. I saw how badly managed and promoted athletes were, and I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I got together with a YouTuber, and Adam Smith, who was at Sky Sports for 30 years, and said, should we try and offer athletes something a bit different? Content creators, coming into our environment as well with athletes will be quite attractive, I think, to brands. Tell their story first, and hopefully revenue will flow. Part of the problem I had at London United was raising money.
Yeah.
During COVID and Brexit and 2 prime ministers in a month and bear markets and everything else. The guy, in fact, was raising money for me died. I mean, I could tell you so many stories. So I was always of the view that if I went into something new, I wouldn't relive the same experience. And I probably, in hindsight, launched a little bit earlier. As I'm talking now about Summit Sports recently, a couple of years ago, earlier than I would have liked, because Adam had come out of Sky and he was hot property. And I had to capitalise on what's Adam Smith now doing.
Yeah.
Adam Smith wants to help and give back to athletes. And I didn't have the money. I had a little bit, didn't have what I needed. I had promises, people on exits that didn't materialise down the line, and it made life a lot more difficult. And I'm proud of what we've achieved. We've built a really nice roster across combat sport. We've got an Israeli athlete, Nili Block, actually, who's just been out in China at the Sambo World Games. You got a guy in the One Championship. We haven't had a cash cow, and then we've got this golf content creator roster where you just do some brand deals from you, keep them taking over. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in golf. But I keep saying, I think this must be the 3rd time I've now said, we haven't got a cash cow.
Yeah.
Now, that meant I've got to make decisions because I've got to be able to put meat on the table.
Yeah.
So what I do I raise money again? It's not easy to raise money, as you know.
Yeah.
I had a meeting with a sports tech company here as well, and he was telling me how difficult they've found it, and that's a tech business, and we're a services business. Do I do it as a side hustle? Do I try and find partners to bring in? All that sort of machinations I'm going through at the moment because I can't have the same experience as I've had in the past. But I've gone into this because I believe in it, and I believe that athletes need better. The amount of horror stories I've had from people pulling fast ones over them, athletes, and I think they're all leaving too much value on the table. Like, none of them are thinking about IP creation. None of them are thinking about longevity. What am I going to do if I get injured tomorrow? And that's stuff that I'm good at. I'm good at looking at the contracts and navigating the pitfalls for them. But I'm also able to say, have you thought about a merch range? Or I'm just making up a protein shake.
Yeah.
Right, I can help you do that. Let's go and create some joint IP.
So you said a minute ago, probably a magic word about adding value. Is that what drives you? Like you're totally focused on adding value for your clients or whoever you partner with?
Yeah, even I'm doing a couple of consultancy. I'll call them consultancies now because I feel a bit older. But I'm doing a couple of consultancy gigs, and even when I talk to clients, I say, where are your gaps? Where can I add value? There's no point in paying me just because I'm Olly Weingarten and I might look good in your letterhead, like someone said to me last week when they offered me a gig here. What value? You're spot on. It's like, what value can I bring you? And for me, if someone's going to entrust their career or part of their career, I've got to give them some value. And the challenge we've had is, and I think it's because we haven't had the capital, quite frankly, is we haven't had a salesperson, a full-time salesperson who is 24/7 bashing doors down, finding out from brands who's got money, and then marrying up this athlete to that brand in now or in 3 months' time. We write great emails. I believe very much in tailor-made emails, finding hooks with the brands, but there's a lot of ghosting that goes on. If you don't have the connection or the direct connections, or even if you do, it all takes time, and you're doing 20 million things.
So at the moment, it's all you've built Summit Sports just on word of mouth, basically, at the moment.
No, we've had media. You'll find us online, and we've got some athletes that have done well, but we haven't done any huge brand deals. We've done some nice brand deals, but as soon as you start doing the big ones, that starts to generate some recurring revenue, and you can hire. We need a salesperson.
Right.
Like, you're not going to get a decent salesperson just on commission only, as you know. You've worked in this industry a long time. They don't invest in you, do they? So it's a bit, it's a bit of an unvirtuous circle.
Because you reached out to, well, we speak fairly frequently anyway, but you sent me a message, it might have been about 9 months ago or so. If you know anyone, like any connections into like the VC world, let me know. Really needing to raise money. And I think I put you in touch with one person. I don't know what happened with that. But with regards to Summit Sports, like, at what point do you say, okay, there's something happening here, let's really go in, all in? Or at what point you turn around and say, at the end of the day, I've got mortgage, wife and 3 kids to look after. As much as I would love to do it, and as much as I believe I am creating value for the partners that I'm working with, it's just financially it's not viable.
I think the mistake I made was when I didn't raise money I raised a bit of money at the beginning, and then the market got very tough. And this
London United?
No, the Summit.
Summit,
for
okay.
Summit. And I'm in all these groups with other startups, so I know how hard it is for everyone. And the UK is such a risk-averse market as well, which just amplifies everything.
Yeah.
I think when I realised that, even having SCIS, CIS and the coming to end of tax year, it was still going to be challenging. I should have had some other ways to make sure the bills could be paid. And then I'd been comfortable, but I didn't. It's a learning for people listening that you need to think about yourself. I'm always thinking about the others. I'm thinking about X, Y, and Z who've each given me 25 grand, for example, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And have invested in me.
Yeah.
But they're not putting food on my table, are they?
Yeah.
So that is the mistake that I made. I should have earlier on in this journey just made sure that I could always be comfortable and have a way that pay the bills and then do everything else. And unless athletes decide they don't want to work with me, I'll always work with them, because it's something I want to do. I can give back. I'm
You can add
fascinated by it.
value.
Yeah, and I can add value.
But how do you deal with that? I don't know if it's self-doubt, because there's a lot of elements that are not directly within your control. But how do you deal with that doubt, whether it's general level of doubt or, self-doubt?
But you try and preclude it from happening to the extent that you think it's possible. But at the end of the day, if someone does it, I've had it in boxing. We invested in this young guy. His mum said, "Ollie, we're loyal. We get pitched all the time, but we're loyal to you. And Adam, we love you guys. You're the best, blah, blah, blah." They walked away. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
You got a contract with me. I'm not going to sue them. If someone doesn't want to work for me, unless they're trying to leave me to avoid paying me, that's different. But if someone, has just decided they want to go down a different route, there's not much I can do. But I had genuinely laid great foundations and great blocks for this boxer. We invested in him. He became known. He was selling more tickets. We were attending his fights. Adam was putting his arm around him and mentoring him. Having Adam Smith in your corner is a huge thing for a young boxer that's, trying to go for whatever area title or British title.
Absolutely.
And that's an example of me doing as much as I could have done and it being out of my control.
Yeah.
And it was out the blue as well. And that really hurt. But then I'm like, they don't want to work with me. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
What can I do? It's out of my control. You asked me earlier about, the failures and, getting up and trying to prove people wrong. Just go and try and find someone else and show what a good job you can do. And they'll look from the outside and go, "God, we made a mistake. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't." But
I think everybody has scars. And I believe that's one of the ways that you really learn and you become better. You've got to fail. You've got to take those scars to then become stronger and move forward. And that's something, I talk to my kids about that quite a lot. Like, it's okay to fail. It's not okay if you keep failing at the same thing, because, then you're not paying attention.
Yeah, I think my family and my wife probably thought it was a bit of deja vu, Groundhog Day. I think that's the problem I've had with Summit. They're like, they've lived through the pain. I had some very low moments. In fact, my wife Claire was saying to my mum that my brothers were there for me. My family were very close. My brothers were there for me. Now look, if I put my heart on my sleeve, I could have said through the dark days, if I'd been, and I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but if I'd been of weaker mental strength, I could probably have stayed in bed.
Yeah.
But I still got up at 5:30. I went to the gym, did my 6 till 7, came home, did breakfast with the kids, and then just got on with it.
Yeah.
And I was a moody fucker. I mean, I was really...
Honestly, what's the alternative?
The alternative, like, you want to play devil's advocate, the alternative is you switch off your phone and you lie in a dark room for days on end and you forget about life, and then you put on your phone and all your problems are still there.
I think if you had done that, your grandfather would have come back and given you a kick in your backside.
It's not my character.
Yeah.
It's not my character.
But I think for anybody that is succeeding, or anyone that has got that vision in mind or that goal in mind, you're going to take bumps. There's going to be turbulence along the way. And if you stop every time you take a bit of a knock, you are going to fail. You're not going to reach the goal.
It's interesting if we flip it, because that was quite depressing, that segment that we've just done.
It's all right.
But if we flip it, I've had lots of successes,
Well,
but I never felt I've had chance to celebrate the successes, because I've always rolled from one success into some issue, if that makes sense.
Well, it does make sense, and it's funny you say that, because often, when you watch like podcasts or interviews with elite sports people, they will often talk about, reflecting on their career. They will often talk about, when it comes to regrets, that they didn't celebrate the successes well enough. Like Stephen Hendry, the snooker player, Scottish snooker player, the greatest snooker player of all time. His marriage fell apart. The last interview I saw from him, he was saying that he doesn't really have a relationship with his kids, because he was saying that he would wake up the morning after winning like the world championship, and he won 7 or 8 of them, I think. He was saying he was back in on the practice table, practicing 7-8 hours a day. He said, I just won a world championship the day before. I just won, X amount of money, and I was straight in. And he said, I look back at that and I just think, what were you doing?
Yeah.
But that's probably the reason why he's so successful. Now, there's a limit to how many people are the Stephen Hendrys or the Michael Phelps of this world. They are like, they're not even the 1%. They're like the 0 point, all the rest of it. But I think for the average person that is trying to do the best that they can every single day, it's still applicable. You've still got to get up every day, be the best version of yourself.
You're right. And at London United, I had staff, and I made sure that they celebrated, and I made sure they were praised. But if I turn it in its head again, when I worked in boxing with Ben Shalom at Boxer, we did Eubank Smith pay-per-view, and it was a real bollock to get this fight on a couple of Januaries ago, whenever it was. And it did well, and the fight went well. The fight was really good, and Liam won. He beat Chris Eubank Jr. in the first fight. The Sunday or the Monday, an issue exploded with Ben Shalom having been recorded by Billy Joe Saunders and on the phone, and Ben promising him money and slated Sky. Created a huge issue for me at the time because I was Ben's general counsel as well.
Yeah.
And I said to him, we should be celebrating Eubank Smith, and instead we're marred in this shit.
Yeah.
So it's really, I'm very cognizant of the fact that you got to celebrate the victories.
Yeah.
But we're all driven individuals. This was something that was out of my hands.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think when you've got staff as well, junior staff, you've got to make sure that they're rewarded.
Yeah. No, I agree. We could sit here and talk for hours about sports, about your career. We've not even touched on our beloved football team, but we won't get into that. We're going to finish on one last question. Failure's a bruise, not a tattoo, which basically means that you fail. It's not permanent, but it all depends how you react to it and how you come out the other side. Talk us through a period in your professional life, or personal if you want to go down that path, where you failed, but you used it to your advantage.
I could say I failed in Formula 1. At the end of the day, I had to dissolve FOTA, but I came out with it with a huge amount of credit for the work that I did, and I took it forward into projects I did. I could say I failed at London United, but actually, anyone that knows anything about esports, seen the press, Guild Esports was backed by David Beckham, it floated, they had all this huge amount of money. If I'd had a fraction of the money that they'd had, I could have done some even more incredible things at London United. So I'm incredibly proud of what I achieved over 3 years, and it's all on the internet, and some grime against knives and all these initiatives we did. But at the end of the day, I failed. But all I can do is look back and go, do you know what? I was this sports guy that went into esports. I built something from scratch. I'm massively proud of it. I got out with my integrity intact, and actually, the learnings, I mean, there are a few that maybe I would echo and have disregarded, but the learnings there are unbelievable. They've over the course of my career, 10 years Premier League and from on blue chip sports properties, and then going into sports tech and esports and taking a really different direction, whether from an entrepreneurial perspective or a sector perspective. I've learned a lot, and I've had a lot of failures, but as say, whatever the phrase was, failure is learning. What was it? Is it
failure is a bruise, not a tattoo?
Failure is a bruise, not a tattoo. Is very apt, and just got to try and not repeat the same mistakes twice.
Absolutely. Ollie, it's been an absolute pleasure sitting talking to you, as I knew it would be. A big thank you to Olly Weingarten for, I know you're flying back tomorrow morning, yes. So she let you out for a bit whilst she's at home packing and dealing with 3 kids.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. I hope you move out here quickly. It's always good to have another Glasgow boy out here.
Thanks, Paul.
Take care.